Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And I'm not on cam today. I wasn't feeling up for it. And unfortunately, we have another game here in this kind of concerning trend I've been noticing. I'm not doing this on purpose, but it's just kind of the last handful of games that I've played seem to have kind of fallen under this blanket of the whole why I stopped playing type of games. Landstalker is another one of those. But before we get to why, I do want to start with talking a bit about the game here. Now, to be noted here, I did play this game on the Sega Genesis Mini, so I'm using the appropriate controller with that. As far as I know, it's pretty similar to the real deal from the limited use I've had of a real Sega Genesis controller, so I want to give it the benefit of the doubt there and say this is probably pretty close to what it actually is like. I've also played it before a little bit on Steam, but the save files didn't work there when I did that before, so this is why I was retrying it here, and also as a fun little bit of the whole No Nintendo November thing I've been trying. And so I figure, what's the least Nintendo thing you can get? Well, how about something that's Sega? So Landstalker is this action RPG adventure game that it kind of feels like the un-Zelda, right? It's like Sega's answer to Zelda. And at least it's kind of how it's like I would pitch it. A lot of people would see it. The basic plot is that you play as Nigel, who is like a treasure hunter who gets word of this, basically kind of bump into this like fairy that's being chased, who happens to know something about this legendary treasure of King Nole. I think the subtitle is The Treasure of King Nole, or Treasures, whatever. And basically most people just call the game Landstalker, but so you end up teaming up because there's somebody chasing after her because this little fairy knows stuff. Fairy is called Friday. And Kayla is the big bad villain, I guess, with her group of cronies that are after her, and because they're basically after the treasure as well. So you end up going around mostly looking for clues to try and figure out where the treasure is and how you can get it. Because you don't even know exactly what it is, you just know that it's legendary and it's probably worth a lot of money, so of course you're in to do that. And most of this happens in the opening scene here, is a little cutscene thing that kind of plays out as well, and then you start playing the game. In actual gameplay, you can walk around here, you can move in 4 directions. It is an isometric game with platforming elements, so you can also jump as well as attack by swinging your sword, but you can only move in like diagonals in those 4 directions. And most of the game is about going to different towns, trying to pick up clues as to, where the treasures might be and things that can help you with that. Along with other little side quest things along the way. There's a lot of enemies to fight. You can defeat them to get golds. They, for some reason, have to have an S on the end of it because every piece of gold is that important. And you can use that to buy stuff in the shops. You can rest at the inns to for a price to heal yourself. You can go to the church to heal save your progress. I think it does other things as well. There's like an interesting system where you can like pick up items and set them down. So most shops and things, you'll have to pick up the item and like drop it on the counter to actually buy it. So when you pick it up, they're like, that's this item and it costs this much, and then you put it on the counter if you want it. Or like, when you go to save in like the church, you go in and you pick up like the record book and throw it on the counter, and then it's like, okay, you can do that. So there is an element of picking things up and placing it. Sometimes you need that for certain, like placing it on switches and things. So there are little like puzzles in the environments and stuff as well that again feels kind of Zelda-ish in that sense. So it's not all action. And then fighting enemies is mostly slashing them with your sword, avoiding them, jumping around. Mainly it's that. Well, like I say, I haven't beat the game, so mostly all I did was go to a few different dungeons, go through those, do the platforming challenges, and fighting enemies, and that kind of thing, and then I got to a point where I got frustrated enough where I stopped playing. So I'm not really that deep into the game, I don't think, at all. I've gotten like 1 extra sword, and quite a bit of like life, because you do have these, basically you have a bunch of hearts. They're called life stock, And an interesting thing that goes on here as well is that actually the more life stock you have, that actually makes you stronger. So early on, enemies might take a lot of hits, but as you get more life stock, your attacks do more damage, so earlier enemies will start taking less damage because of it. So I did figure that out, but a lot of these items and things don't really tell you what they do, so you either just have to test them out yourself to figure it out, or, you know, look it up online and be like, what does this do? And so yeah, I didn't get particularly deep in the game. However, there are a lot of things that I do like about this game, and so that's why I felt it was worth talking about. Because I do think that the world is very, very interesting. I like the kind of like the setup of traveling around, and I like the I think it's the details look really nice. Graphically, it looks nice. The music is really cool. I always like Sega Genesis music usually, anyways, so that's not much of a surprise. But I really like this here too. Landstalker sounds great. And sound effects are nice, although oddly all the enemies have the same pained sound and death sound, which is fine, except I guess the only time I'm like, well, why do they do it for bubbles? Why do they have any? I mean, I guess they want to have the indication that you hit them, but like, why would bubbles make any like human sounding sounds? It's a little goofy, but I also do like that it is in the vein of Zelda, that it's not like a, there's not much of an RPG as like, you don't have to do as much like grinding and stuff like typical RPGs. It is more of like an action adventure type of thing, with RPG like setting and a few elements, I guess, in there, like I guess grinding money and getting like, items in your inventory and stuff. There's some bits of it there, but it's more adventure than it is RPG for sure. And being able to actually jump and doing the platforming parts also does give it a different like level that, again, Zelda does not have, where you're actually like, the way you're traversing areas and like doing stuff in the environment is more interesting, because there is that verticality to it. There is the ability to actually jump and do things, and that does just add another little layer to the stuff that you're doing. So there's definitely like, also like the dialogue is really cool. There's a lot of like funny. It's clear they didn't take this game too seriously. There's also a lot of things where they're saying kind of like weirdly sexual things too. Like not like it's like a perverted game or anything necessarily, but like 18 plus or something. But like they're kind of leaning into some of that idea more than I think you would see. It's definitely a Nintendo game of the time, which is kind of nice to see, kind of refreshing a little bit. And it's clear they don't take things too seriously, so it's fun. So it was, getting to a new town is always like, it's fun. I'm going to talk to everybody, see the interesting stuff that people say, the goofy things that they might bring up, the odd references to stuff. I want to see what cool monsters I'm going to fight, what kind of cool like weapons and things am I going to get. All this stuff was really pushing me forward. What new songs am I going to hear? Then again, the issue that I had, and the reason I stopped playing this game, even though it has tons of potential to be really cool, is that it's super frustrating to play. And that's kind of the main issue, is that basically the two things are the control and the perspective that really make this game just frustrating. So for the control, like I mentioned before, it's an isometric thing, and you can only move in 4 directions, and they're in diagonals. And the D-pad on the Genesis controller can do diagonals, but it's like kind of recessed down there. It's hard to hit directly in the diagonal to make it go there immediately. Most of the time, you'll probably end up accidentally hitting like, another like cardinal direction before rolling all the way into the actual diagonal. And whenever you hit any cardinal direction, the game still moves, but since you can't move in those directions, you only move in 4 directions, the diagonals, it has to decide which way that you're going to move, which is kind of based on the way you were moving and the way you're facing, and it seems like it kind of changes all the time, so it's kind of hard to get a grasp on. Basically, think of it this way: if you hit up on the D-pad, since you can't move directly upwards, it'll either move diagonally up to the left or diagonally up and to the right. That's kind of what they'll do, and that's definitely difficult to do anything with. I guess it's hard to adjust for when you don't intend to hit that. So things feel kind of like you wiggle around in things a little bit, and also the game asks you to be very precise a lot of times, and that's another part of the problem. It doesn't control as precisely as the game wants you to do things, so it's very easy to misalign trying to hit enemies. Sometimes you'll be just like slashing and like you're too close to a wall, or you're not quite in the line enough, in line with them enough to hit them, and they can walk around you and hit you. You can't reposition very easily because you might wiggle you around to facing different ways or going a different way. Maybe it makes you walk into them. So it's very unwieldy to move around and adapt to situations, especially anything that requires quickness and good timing. You can easily mess up jumps this way, especially on small platforms, so you just kind of fall off of them because it wiggles you around in ways you didn't want to go, and it's even just picking up items to place them down to buy things or do whatever, set up stuff. The picking up and setting down items mechanic is also difficult because, again, you're trying to be very precise in a game that is just difficult to be precise with. If you don't have things lined up just right, sometimes you're just going to throw the thing down and it's okay, well, they didn't ask me if I want to buy this or if I want to save my game or whatever, so I didn't place it on the exact pixels they wanted me to place it on. Stuff like that is very frustrating when it asks you to be very precise with something that is kind of unwieldy like that and not very precise in how it controls. And it sounds like it only gets harder from here. And that's where, also, I think the combat is where I really, started to get annoyed as well. Because not only are, these platforming sections difficult, but the combat, too. The combat is, enemies are kind of hard to deal with. So either they're easy enough to deal with where you kind of just spam attack and they'll just walk into it. Or they become more difficult where you have to time things and move around and stuff. And again, moving around and trying to adapt and dodge to what they're doing is so inconsistent that it becomes difficult to do that reliably, and it kind of just feels like rolling the dice every time you're trying to do it. And the worst part is that the perspective with the platforming stuff is just awful because it's isometric and it's really hard to tell, where you are in relation to other platforms. Is this thing next to me? Is it further away from me? Is it above me? Is it below me? Can I just walk onto it? Do I have to jump to it? Do I have to jump in midair and turn to hit this thing? And there's a lot of sections where, there are sections where they try to show you, they kind of have visual cues so you can tell where things are, but then there are sections where they don't have those things, so it's clear that it was probably intentional. It seems pretty clear to me that if they have it in some places and not others, the intention was you have to figure it out. So it's not really a fun puzzle thing, it's a frustrating trial and error of okay, try a bunch of different jumps to see, what direction do I have to go, where exactly is this platform in relation to me, with each platform one after the other. And even if you know what you're doing, you might still mess it up because the control isn't precise enough to really allow you to do that. And again, I know a lot of this is going to sound like I'm just bad at the game, and that's very possible. Maybe other people are just way better at this, they got the controls down and they never have this issue with the diagonals and not moving where you want it to move. And if that's the case, that's awesome for you and you can enjoy how cool this game probably is, because there is a lot of stuff to like here. And in fact, I would encourage you that if you have access to the game, I'm not going to say go out and get the game, but if you have access to the game, definitely give it a shot. So I think it's in a lot of these Sega Genesis collections and things as well, so, or Nintendo Switch Online, I think might have it. Maybe that's behind the advanced tier or whatever, but if you have access to Landstalker already, then I think giving it a shot is not a bad idea to see if you are good enough and you don't have these issues and you can get through the game. But I wouldn't recommend going out of your way for it because it is very difficult. Unless you want something to be very difficult in a way that's not really necessarily fun, it's just hard. And that's ultimately why I'm quitting the game here. I'm only so many hours in, I've only done a number of dungeons, I've gotten to a big city and whatever, and I just found skeletons. If that means anything to people who have played. So it's not like I'm super deep into the game. There's probably a lot more to play, and there's probably a lot of really cool stuff in here. If anything, I might want to watch somebody do a Let's Play at some point or something to see what it's like. But for me, it's just really not that fun, and I don't want to sit here and get frustrated at how difficult and either super boring or super difficult it is to fight enemies, how ridiculously frustrating simple platforming platforming should be simple here, what I'm looking at, and it's not, and that's just annoying. I don't want to deal with all that stuff, and so I am calling it quits where I stand, and saying that I think this game is very cool, it has potential. I think this game could get, maybe some kind of a remake, some way to fix it up a bit here. I think it could be really fun, but as it stands, it's just very difficult for not much reward for that. I feel like I want to get to the fun parts, and then basically the flavor stuff in between is the fun part, and the actual core gameplay is just increasingly getting more and more frustrating as it asks me to do things that the controls don't really allow me to properly do. So that was my 2 cents on Landstalker. Hopefully it was still interesting as a review. Hopefully I will get something else completed as for my next review and actually beat the game, instead of having a bunch of reviews in a row that are like, I played a game, and I stopped playing, and here's why. Because I don't want to do a zillion videos like this. That would be silly. And hopefully I got enough footage on here for that to work. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time for maybe another Sega Genesis game if I get that done in time for this month. So we'll see how things go.